says it in a different way. This is not about media. This is about the advertising industry. And when they do to other media what they've done in text on Google, that's when our industries are going to change, and that's when we're going to feel the force of the big boom, as it were. Now, actually, I'm going to zip through these slides actually because I think they may not be relevant to most of the audience. But I'd like to suggest that the right way to think about the world of new media is this one. For the generation that's grown up with broadband, for the generation that's grown up with Google, if something's not in Google, it doesn't exist. Eric talked about books. Most books aren't in Google. I think it's a tragedy. I think it's a cultural tragedy that for the generation that's growing up, assuming everything's in Google, they're not exposed to books. I think this is a controversial view, but I really want Google and the others who are doing this to accomplish the task of digitizing these books as quickly as possible, because so much of our culture is locked up in books, and this generation just doesn't know about it. And that's true for everything else. So now, with the consequence of this, if it's not in Google, it doesn't exist for this generation, are as follows. And I think I'll express it just as a kind of from my own perspective. This is how we think about websites from a magazine website perspective. It's all about hierarchy, and it's about getting these things right in this order. The number one thing is be in Google. Make sure that your site is optimized for crawling, optimized for permalinks, optimized for all those third-party, votes, those recommendations that drive traffic. If you build a funky site built on Flash or whatever that people can't navigate or that doesn't have permalinks, you won't be in Google. If you can't be crawled, if you're behind a subscription wall, you won't be in Google. For this new media landscape, you don't exist. Once you've optimized yourself for Google and the traffic comes in, you then have to keep them. So you have to, the reader experience once they come in has to be good. Now, this is not just a matter of a well-designed site, because the funky thing about them coming in through third-party links is that they don't come in at the front door. They don't come in at your homepage. They come in at the atomic level. They come in at the individual content level. So for us, that means they come in on the individual story. And that means if the individual story is cluttered with ads and has a messy user interface, then they won't stay. And it doesn't matter how clean our front page is, because they didn't come in through our front page, and they may never will. Finally, once they've come in, we then try to convert them into paying users. We do so primarily with subscriptions, because we monetize the subscriptions at about 5 times the CPM as the website. It's a really efficient model for us to turn them into subscribers. It lowers our acquisition costs, and we can charge more for the advertisers because it's a unique, non-commodity product. Finally, once you've done all those things, only then do we worry about selling them online ads. If we get the order of this wrong, if we put the online ads first, we'll violate number 2, the reader experience. If we get number 3 wrong and we actually make them register and subscribe before they can read it, we'll violate number 1. And so if the order of this is super important for us, and we will suffer if we get our priorities inverted. So these are sort of 5 things that we're trying to do, and they may have some application to you. The first thing is we don't believe in portals anymore. Portals are all based on a kind of a traditional mass market command and control model where they come in on your homepage and then you control their experience. It's very much a kind of we control the horizontal, we control the vertical thing. You built a user interface, you put content in a certain order that reflects your priorities, and you drive traffic. That doesn't work anymore. Now more than half of our traffic comes in from search and from third-party links. They don't experience our UI the way we intended them to. They experience our UI on the individual story level. This is a sad story of one of our competitors, Business 2.0, another magazine. They decided to drive subscriptions. They would put everything behind a subscription wall. That violates the if you're not in Google, you don't exist rule. And this is their traffic that happened. Subsequently, they reversed that decision, as you might imagine. This is really interesting. One of the things in Silicon Valley, we all are into RSS, and I suspect that many people in this room don't even know what RSS is. Certainly, in most of my audiences, almost nobody knows what RSS is, and yet I think that RSS is probably the most important media distribution technique there is. RSS, just to briefly describe it, is a way you don't go to the website comes to you. You subscribe to a feed on a site, and when that site has new content, it comes to you and you read it in a feed reader, like Bloglines or a Feed Daemon or something like that. In this model, what's really interesting about this model is that we don't control any of the user interface at all. The user interface is designed by somebody else, the blog lines or the client in which you read this. Our content is now completely decontextualized. It's completely removed from our own site, and it sits there mixed up in other people's content. And people actually don't even know where they're reading it necessarily. And occasionally they'll click through to our site if they want to read more, but they very often won't. So this is our content now sort of flying free out there. So we can't, it's very difficult even to monetize it in that context, and yet that's what people want. And in the same way that Google puts the users first, if people want the content to come to them, if they want to do away with bookmarks and do away with the habit of visiting sites time and time again, then we should let them do so. And now actually this is more than a third of our traffic comes from, more than a third of our readership comes from RSS, but none of it shows up as traffic because most of the people don't click through. On a page view model, it doesn't show up. On a unique visitors model, it doesn't show up. And yet these are real readers, and we have to find a way to do RSS right. This is fascinating. So in the traditional media business, yesterday's news is fish wrap. Yesterday's news is considered of no value whatsoever. In the Google economy, in the economy driven by hyperlinks, the old actually has advantages over the new. When you think about it, it's because it has longer time to build up those hyperlinks. Incoming links are the only thing that matters. The older the content is, the more time it has for people to link to it as the canonical source of that information. The good content builds links over time. It gets more relevant. It gets more traffic. It ranks higher on Google search than the new stuff over time. So right now, 40% of our traffic comes to content that's more than a month old. And that's also the fastest growing part. We haven't realized how much value there is in our archives, and unfortunately, if your archives were walled off before, they don't have incoming links, and there's no good way for them to get them. We've been giving away all our content for free for a while, so that our old content does have incoming links, but it tends to get more over time. So if you really understand the hyperlink economy, you understand that the archive can be a huge source of revenues that was previously considered almost worthless. Finally, just one last example before I give you that video I promised. Our motto at Wired is fail fast. It is not succeed fast because success is unpredictable. It's not fail slow because that would be bad. It's fail fast. We fail fast and we fail cheaply. We fail because we must, because we have no idea what people want and we can't know. And predicting what people want is always a mistake because we always get it wrong. Now, we don't always get it entirely wrong. Sometimes some of our experiments succeed, but the experiments that we do the fastest give us data back very quickly as to what people want, and we build on the successes. The ones that fail don't cost us very much, and so we let them wither away. This was an experiment that General Motors did, Chrysler did, in America with something called the Chevy Tahoe. It's an SUV. They did an experiment with user-generated video, and what they did is they put up the video itself of a car going around corners, and leaves are blowing. You go up to the cliff and look at the sunset. You've seen this before, but they let the users write the captions. Now the expectation was going to be that the SUV fans were going to say, "This is me. I love my Tahoe. This is what I do on my weekends." But that's not what happened. What happened is that the environmentalists took it over, and they hacked the ad. And they had things like peak oils here, maybe you should walk, or my favorite was this, like summer, get used to it. This is good.